I think if there were ever an FAA certificate that was almost universally overlooked and undervalued, it would have to be the Ground Instructor certificate. Most pilots I've met would say the Ground Instructor certificate is a waste of time and money. In this video, I'm going to humbly explain to you why I disagree. How's it going, aviators? In today's video, I'm going to explain to you why you as a pilot should be interested in getting your Ground Instructor certificate and how to do so. Starting with the why, I would say the number one thing that a Ground Instructor certificate provides you is something for your resume. When it comes to professional level pilot jobs, whether it be your first CFI job, applying for the airlines, applying for a 135, sometimes even applying for the military, there's really not a whole lot in the line of a pilot resume that you can put besides your hours. Yeah, you can bulletize the breakdown of your flight experience, but every pilot has that. And what else are you going to put on your resume? That you're a good pilot? Guess what? Everybody without a flight violation on their record says that they're a good pilot. Now, one good thing that you can put on your resume, and that's quantifiable and qualifiable, is FAA recognized certificates. Certified credentials that you can list on your resume without making it into fluff. And in the age where recruiters get only seconds to look at your resume, having those credentials might make yours stand out. The next reason for getting a ground instructor certificate is actually becoming a ground instructor. Now, for those of you just starting out in this industry, you might be surprised to know that professional pilots of the airline 135 and military variety don't get hired on a Wednesday and then start in the simulators on a Thursday. On the contrary, most of the initial training is done on the ground in a classroom environment or in stationary cockpit trainers. Now, this is just a controversial take from me, but in my personal opinion, I think that the instruction that you receive on the ground in a classroom is more important of that which is given in the aircraft or in the simulator. Now, feel free to blast me in the comments section, but the way that I see it is a caveman can be taught how to jiggle sticks inside of the aircraft. Getting a control touch just takes experience. But when it comes to teaching hard topics, the unfun topics, weather, legalities, procedures, scenarios, that takes somebody with the heart of an instructor to do those jobs. If you ever plan on becoming an instructor in the professional fields like military or the airlines, whether it be a retirement gig or just as an opportunity to step away from the flying for a bit so you can spend some nights on your own pillow, you're going to need your ground instructor ratings. Now, that is if you're planning on becoming a professional ground instructor. Let's talk about if you involuntarily become a ground instructor. Yes, the next thing I want to talk about is the thing that no pilot ever wants to talk about, which is the loss of your FAA medical. Now, the question about losing your medical is not if, but when. Whether that be age, illness, biology, or a freak accident completely outside of your control, eventually you will see a day that you are no longer legally be able to operate an aircraft. Now, God willing, you lose your medical long from now after a very lucrative career and it's a non-issue. But nothing in this life is guaranteed. You could get into a car wreck today and be out of work for the next 6 months waiting to clear your medical. Or a scenario like this, I actually have a friend who went in for a routine FAA medical first class and actually discovered at the appointment that he had heart palpitations. Completely healthy guy, took care of himself, worked out, not his fault, just the reality of life. Now, if this happens to you, what's next? Do you go back to working some unskilled job? Maybe. Or you can leverage your knowledge and become a ground instructor. See, you might not think it, but you are so much more than just a stick wiggler. If you're an instructor pilot or an experienced pilot, you are a wealth of knowledge. And there are flight schools, student pilots, and professional employers that will pay handsomely for that. Now, do you always require your ground instructor rating to take on these ground instructor roles? No, not always. But I can tell you, if you're applying to a company or a job outside of your current position as a pilot, it will always help you to have those ground instructor ratings on your resume. Now, I'm going to make a separate video on this specific topic. There's a credential that you can get as a CFI. It's performance-based, but it's called the Gold Seal Instructor. Now, a lot of pilots don't even know that it exists because it's kind of rare, but it's literally a gold/yellow FAA logo that goes at the top of your CFI rating that you get to keep for life. Now, does being a Gold Seal instructor do anything besides get you a little bit of bragging rights at the bar and maybe a little extra something on your resume? No, not really. I've talked to other instructors and pilots about it, and I get the usual, "Oh, nobody cares, bro." However, you'll find when it's brought up, deep down, most instructors secretly wish they had it. Either way, if getting your Gold Seal CFI is a goal of yours, you will need one of the ground instructor ratings. Okay, those are my reasons why you as a pilot should consider getting your ground instructor rating. Now let's talk about how and when you should get them. Now, in order to get your ground instructor rating, all you have to really do is take a few FAA knowledge tests, aka written tests, which is the FOI, Fundamentals of Instruction, and the ground instructor rating you wish to get, which is either basic, advanced, or instrument. Now, once you have both of these tests taken, you then go on to IACRA and fill out a Form 8710, just like if you were going to go for an additional rating right before a check ride. Now, to actually get your ground instructor rating, you have two options. You can either go through the FSDO and go through a FSDO representative, or you can go through a designated pilot examiner just like you would for your flying ratings. There's no test associated, no knowledge test, they just issue the certificate. Now, the Fundamentals of Instruction test is the exact same as if you were going for your CFI, so if you've already taken your Fundamentals of Instruction for your CFI, then you're good to go. Now, as far as the written tests go, because the knowledge tests are the hardest part of getting your ground instructor rating, you'll find that there's a lot of crossover between the flying instructor CFI questions and the ground instructor CFI questions. For example, if you were going to become an instrument instructor and you're wanting to get your instrument ground instructor rating, if you take both of those tests at the same time, there are several questions that, if not the exact same, are very similar. Your studies for one of those tests will help you study and get ahead for the other, if that makes any sense. Also, if you don't feel like dealing with the FSDO, if you're going for an addition to your CFI rating or an additional rating, while you're with the DPE, you can present your written tests and the DPE can sign you off. And that is how you get your ground instructor ratings. Now, before I end this video, there are a couple caveats I'd like to mention about this. Now, my first caveat is, of those three ground instructor ratings, the basic, instrument, and advanced, only two of those are even worth having, and that's the advanced and the instrument. Basic ground instructor really doesn't mean a whole lot on a resume, and once you get your advanced ground instructor rating, it replaces the basic, so you really should just skip right over the basic and go straight to advanced. There's no requirement for you to get your basic prior to getting your advanced ground instructor rating. Save your time, save your money, just go straight to advanced. Now, speaking of money, if you are prior service or current military and you have access to a local bases education center, you can take these FAA knowledge tests for free. If the cost of taking these knowledge exams is the only thing holding you back from getting your ground instructor rating, that is an excellent military benefit that you should utilize. Alright, you've heard it here, why you as a pilot should get your ground instructor rating and how to do so. Alright, well, that's really all I have on this topic. This has been John Church. Clear skies and God bless.